Good morning, YouTube. This is Linda. I've been living in a suit teepee for the past 6, almost 7 months, and I have a lot of questions from people about how I do everyday things, how I cook, how I go to the bathroom, what some of the problems are living in a teepee, what the benefits are that I've seen from living in a teepee. So I'm going to do a series of videos to show you what life is like inside a teepee. Today's video, however, is going to be reasons why you should not live in a teepee. Now, if someone had told me all of the reasons that I'm about to tell you why I shouldn't live in a teepee, I still would have bought a teepee, and I still would live in a teepee. But these are some issues that you need to be aware of in case you're planning on living in it long term like I am, or if you're planning on having pets or children inside the teepee. So the first thing that I want to discuss with you is that when you live in a teepee, you're basically living outdoors. There's a canvas cover and a canvas liner, which this is the liner. And the liner, when it hangs on the inside and it's tucked down underneath, it makes a chimney effect in the teepee. And that's why you're able to build a fire and keep smoke out. However, those 2 layers of canvas are not enough to provide any real protection. So whatever is happening in the atmosphere is also happening inside the teepee. If it's 100 degrees or 110 degrees like it was this summer outside, a teepee actually makes it hotter because it traps air. Now, if you've read the Lobbins book, The Indian Teepee, they tell you that you can keep a teepee cool in the summertime. Well, I live in the northernmost part of the Chihuahuan Desert in Texas, and I'm here to tell you that's not true. I did a lot of things to try to keep my teepee cool. I followed their advice. I also used water on the outside of the teepee, thinking that evaporation would keep it cooler inside, and it does keep it cooler, but it doesn't cool it ever. I even, at one time, resorted to having an evaporative cooler in here, which helps as long as you're sitting right in front of it, 6 inches away from the element, the cooling element. Otherwise, it's hot in here. When it's 110 out there, it's 115 inside. And when you live in the elements and outdoors, like you do when you're in a teepee, there are several health problems that you're going to experience. You're going to dehydrate at a very rapid rate. So if you don't consume plenty of water, you will dehydrate. I've been dehydrated several times. Twice to the point where I probably should have had some medical care, some electrolytes intravenously. Another thing about living outdoors is if it's cold. If it's cold outside, it's cold in the teepee. Right now, I'm using this heater, which is not rated for indoor use, but since I'm living outside and my door is open and my smoke flaps are open, it's perfectly safe. I'm using that instead of a fire because I have some time constraints on me. I have to get to school and don't have time to build a fire. But a small fire does keep the teepee relatively warm. If you bank your fire, bank your embers so you have them the next morning, you can just add more wood to it and you'll have another fire fairly quickly. But when you build a fire in a teepee, to keep from smoking yourself out or dying from carbon monoxide poisoning, you have to have very small, extremely dry pieces of wood. I'm talking about slivers. I don't have any slivers right now to show you what I start a fire with, but if you start with anything larger than that, you end up smoking the teepee out. Everything you own smells like smoke. I have to adjust my heater. It's burning me out of here. So I just turned it off. But you have to start a very small fire, and a large fire is actually a danger in a teepee. The embers can get caught on your liner. You can burn your teepee down very quickly. So a small fire will keep your teepee on the inside relatively warm, even with your smoke flaps open. A small fire will also keep some rain out. If you have a light rain, the updraft from the heat goes up through the smoke flaps, and it keeps the rain from coming in. But if you have a hard rain, this is one of the elemental factors I'm talking about, you're going to get wet inside. Now, I have the 27-foot poles, so my teepee has this lovely hourglass shape. The problem with that is, it looks lovely, but I can't put a rain cap on there. So when we did have heavy rains, I flooded out, and I flooded 3 times. So I'm moving my teepee to higher ground. But you will get wet. If it's foggy outside, I've awakened and thought there was smoke in the teepee, but it was fog. So whatever it's doing outside, it's also doing inside. You can't regulate it, and you have to prepare for that, especially if you have children. Because like I said, you can get dehydrated so quickly that it's frightening. Now, one good thing about living in a teepee, I'll just go over this quickly, is that you do get acclimated to the weather to a degree. Now, 110 degrees still feels very, very hot, but you can get used to it. And then when you go into a cold building, like the public library or school, you freeze. Okay, so the second issue that I want to talk to you about is whatever lives outside your teepee can certainly come inside the teepee. I've had snakes, frogs, lizards, ants, birds, a skunk looked through my teepee door one night and just stood with her paws poised on the door. She wasn't the least bit afraid of me, and she saw that I had dog food in here. So she almost came in, and she might have come in while I was sleeping because I did hear something moving around in here that wasn't me or my dogs. And I did find little muddy footprints the next morning, so I think something came in, whether it was my skunk or a cat or whatever. But you cannot keep insects or animals out very well. There's an opening under your cover to allow for air movement to come up behind the liner. Well, there are lots of animals that will just climb right up the back side of that liner and just plop right down inside the teepee. I've had birds that love to perch on the poles and take their morning constitutional right down on top of me, sitting down here. I've had frogs in here. I've had tons of spiders. In fact, I actually have a policy where I don't kill anything unless it's going to hurt me or someone I love. It's live and let live. But this summer, early summer, I had a population explosion of wolf spiders. They were everywhere. They were crawling across me at night. It's while I was still sleeping on a bedroll on the ground. I could feel them running across my face and on my lips. And then suddenly, their numbers decreased exponentially. So I started looking for the predator. Thinking that it might be birds, I noticed that I could still see them during the day, quite a few, but they seemed to just, their numbers diminished during the night. Well, I discovered the culprit. It was actually another spider, and then upon closer inspection, I found at least 20 black widows living in the folds of the teepee liner. Now, for a while, we cohabitated quite peacefully. They didn't bother me. I didn't bother them. They took care of the wolf spiders, so I was fine with them living here. But when my grandchild came for a visit, I couldn't let the black widows remain, so I had to take care of them, unfortunately. But whatever lives outside comes inside, and there's nothing that you can really do about it. I don't use poisonous chemicals, so I do try to encourage insects to stay out as much as possible by keeping things very clean, keeping food up in containers. You can't bring crackers home and leave it in the original package. You just can't, because they can still smell through that. They will open that package, eat all your crackers, hump your bread like a cat does, and then eat your bread. It'll open, if it smells fruit in a plastic package like prunes or apricots, it'll open that. The animals will open that and eat what you have. So you have to be very careful to keep them out by keeping your food safe. Well, I think I mentioned snakes. I've had 2 snakes in here. One was very small. I don't know what it was. I couldn't identify it. The other one was rather large. I think it was a bull snake. But when they saw that I was inside the teepee, they left. They weren't comfortable in here living with me. I've had mice in here. In fact, a mama had a baby. I took a photo of her and asked my professor about it, what kind of mouse it was, and it was not the kind of mouse that I really want in here. It's the type that carries hantavirus. So when I had a flood, which is another reason you shouldn't live in a teepee, but when I had a flood, I believe she and her baby were washed away. I don't have any evidence of her here now. So we've talked about the elements. We've talked about insects. Now we need to talk about sound. When you live inside a teepee and it's stretched tight like it's supposed to be upon the poles, it's like a huge drum. So everything that hits it on the outside resonates on the inside, and it's like someone drumming. This summer, when we had a small population increase of very large grasshoppers, they love to sun themselves on the teepee, so they would jump from the ground and hit the side of the teepee. Oh my God, it was loud, obnoxious, constant, and it doesn't stop during the night. They loved jumping on the teepee and climbing up the teepee and dropping down from the teepee poles, which is a very long drop. They just do it. Also, I live in the country 15 miles from town. However, I have a highway very near, and I have train tracks behind me. So, if you think it's loud when you're sitting outdoors, it's sometimes louder. Sometimes the teepee muffles noise. So I can't explain why it does that, but sometimes it amplifies it. I think the closer the noise is to the teepee, the more amplified it seems. Or when something hits the liner. The exception to that is rain. Rain makes the most peaceful noise that'll just lull you to sleep. It's wonderful to sleep in a teepee in the rain. Small hail bounces off the teepee just like a kid on a trampoline, but it's so noisy. The good thing is, if it's raining before the hail starts, it seems to lessen the noise. Now, the last thing I want to talk about still has to do with the outside elements, but it's flooding. Now, living in the desert the way I do, I did some research and found that we are supposed to get less than 22 inches of rain a year. Well, I think it was June or July. No, it was even after that, August. We had 2 inches of rain that flooded the teepee, flooded the creek and the draw not far from here. And it took a while to clean everything up. Everything was saturated, with water and had a layer of mud encrusted on it. The second rain we got was 9 inches in 2 hours. And the water got up to 4 feet. Well, it flooded almost everything that I own away right out the door, because I didn't know I didn't look at the forecast, didn't know it was going to rain. left my doors open, and everything just floated away. I think I had some peanut butter left. That was about it. But the good thing is the teepee didn't budge a centimeter. Now this is going to go in my video on reasons to live in a teepee, because a conic structure is one of the most sound architectural structures there is. In really high winds, I could hear the smoke flaps flapping some, but I tied them off pretty good. But I couldn't even hear the wind. The wind didn't slap the cover against the poles at all. I could hear the wind blowing, and it was very loud, and it was toppling branches out of trees and toppling some trees. It was blowing everything that was around the teepee clear off the property, but the teepee didn't budge. So it made a really pleasant sleep. When there's a lightning storm, it's incredible to be lying in here and watching the sky light up the teepee. It looks like a big lantern out in the desert when it does that. But I haven't been bothered by lightning. I do have some metal in the teepee. I've tried to eliminate as much as possible, but I do have some. And I've read that the metal in your teepee attracts lightning, but I haven't found that to be true. Let's see. We've covered floods and hail and wind. The cold weather, we covered that. Hot weather, we covered that. So those are basically the reasons that I think that you should really consider before you live in a teepee long time. Now, knowing all these things and having lived through them all, I've been flooded out 3 times. I'm still going to live in my teepee. The next video I make is going to be reasons why you should live in a teepee. Now, I would have to rethink my strategy if my grandchild were ever to live with me. I'd probably build a teepee deck and put it up on higher ground for sure, and try to eliminate a few of the problems that I've had, so she didn't have to go through that. So that's all I have to tell you for now. I'll use my video camera and show you how I live in this thing, where I go to the bathroom. That's been a subject people have asked me about, like, oh my gosh, where do you go? And I've been asked how I take a bath, how I take a shower. I'm not going to demonstrate any of these things for you, but I will show you how I do it. I've been asked how I cook, how I can store my food, where I sleep, how I build a fire. So I'll do videos and show you every bit of that. Now, I'm an ecology major at present, ecology and evolutionary biology at Angelo State University, and my goal is to be completely self-sufficient within 2 years. Well, I'm going to be transferring to A&M, so I won't be completely self-sufficient in 2 years, but I'll be very close, producing my own food. I've always gardened, had a French intensive biodynamic garden, but I found in the desert there are a lot of challenges to having that type of garden. It takes a very long time to build up your soil, and even when you put really healthy amendments in it, the clay content just, it makes it almost impossible to raise a very good garden, at least the first year. I'm also going to be producing my own methane so that I can use it for cooking and for heating if I need it. I'm going to build a solar dehydrator and show you how to use it, how to orient it, how to cook with a solar oven. I'm going to build an Orno, which I had an Orno started. I had the foundation completed, and then the flood washed all the stones out of the foundation. took my materials down the river. So I'm going to wait until I move to higher ground to build the Orno. But I'll show you how I do all of that and how I dehydrate meat if I decide to do that. How I store it. One thing I did do is have a Zier. A Zier is an earthen refrigerator. It's a pot within a pot that has sand between the two layers that they use in Africa. And the concept is that you will water the sand between the two pots, and as the water evaporates, it cools the interior of the pot. Well, there's some problems with that too, and I'll tell you about those on another video. I do believe a Zier will work, but it does not keep food cold. Don't build one or, throw one on a wheel thinking you're going to butter and ice, because that's not going to happen. And if you have your milk in there, you're going to have yogurt or sour cream before the day's over. But that's another video. So thank you for watching. I'll put this on YouTube today, and I'll start making videos of what I do. If any of you have any tips for me, I would certainly appreciate those. If you have any comments, please keep them kind. If you don't, I probably won't delete them. But, because I do believe in free speech. But I'm old and I don't really want to hear any negative comments, okay? Like, you crazy old white-haired whatever. You need to be in an insane asylum instead of a teepee. So you have a good day, and I'll talk to you next video. Thank you for watching.